Okay, so this is going to be a fairly quick lesson on an intro to physics. If you want to have some physics in your Unity scene, that's what we're going to do on this one. So I'm creating a new project here. Name, we're doing 2D. This is 2D physics, not 3D. 3D is similar, but not exactly the same. But if you follow along with this one, you should be able to translate this over to 3D pretty easily. So here's our name. We're 2D. I turned off analytics, and I am going to create our project. And here we go. There we go. All right, so we are just going to grab some glitch assets and a couple little things here. I'm going to get a piece of a ground. Maybe this can be a piece of a ground. And this little thing. All right, so I'm going to drag this thing into our scene, this little tree stump. I am dragging it way out, making it scale very ugly. But all I'm really trying to do is get a platform down here, something that things can fall on. And then with my main camera, I am going to change the background color because it annoys me, that blue. And if we hit play, we have a lovely log here that stuff can sit on. All right, I'm going to take this thing out, this podium, which is just a random thing that I grabbed, and hit play. And there it is. But it's not on top of our ground here. And we could place it, right? We could drag it down and say, okay, I want it to be there. It's behind our piece of grass. So if I want it to come in the front, I'm going to change the order and layer, right? Just like we've done in the past. And if I hit play, then it's going to be there, and that's going to be nice. But we can also use the physics engine to make everything sort of rest at the same level instead of trying to place everything pixel perfect. So if I have this object selected here, this podium, and I go to Add Component, Physics 2D, Rigidbody 2D, this stuff over here now on the left, that gives this thing some weight. And so if I hit play, it's going to cruise all the way down. Right? Now it has weight, gravity's going to pull it down. But we need to make sure that we want it to interact with this ledge here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add, I'm going to select this ledge, which is a table, but we're going to add a collider to this thing so that we know where objects can collide and kind of come in contact with it. So I'll go to Add Component, Physics 2D, Box Collider 2D. And if you noticed, it might be hard to see on the video, but there's now a green box going around this whole thing. And if I come over here to the offset, I can start to click and drag. Oh, that's the X offset. I want Y offset. Now you can see my green box moving up and down. And so when we talk about collisions and where things collide with, they're actually colliding with the colliders that we put on it, not necessarily the image that was there before. So as I drag this little box down, objects will collide at this green line. So anything with a collider that comes in contact with this green line, we're going to have a collision and things are going to come and rest. So let's see if I hit play. Okay, my little podium fell and went all the way through, even though I came through this collider. Reason is, this podium does not have a box collider associated with it, or any kind of collider. There's different types of colliders, but right now we're just kind of focusing on box colliders. So if we have our little podium selected, who also has a rigid body, we can come over and say Add Component, Physics 2D, Box Collider 2D. Now there's a green box around the outside of my podium. And this is the collision boundary for this box. Now, even though this thing is transparent, by using a box collider, it's not following this thing pixel by pixel. It's just making a big box around the outside. And a lot of times that's going to be okay. But there's different types of colliders. There's polygon collider and some other ones if you want to get this thing pixel perfect. But for what we're doing in this example, box collider is going to work just fine. So we've got a box collider and a rigid body on this thing. Down here, we just have a box collider. And so if I hit play, there you go. It comes to rest right there. We can do some fun things. So I'm going to click on our bottom piece here. And if you notice on the box collider, it has a material section. So we can give something a little bit of a bounciness to it. So down here in assets, I'm going to right click create physics material 2D. And I'm just going to call it ground. Ground physics material, why not? And here is the properties of it. We have a bounciness. So if we make this like a 2, okay, again, so I have my physics material 2D down here selected, and I've been able to select the bounciness. Then if I click on my ground and I drag this material up into the box collider, right? So I selected my ground in the box collider section, and then I dragged my physics 2D material from over here in assets up here to this material window. And then now when I hit play, whoa, we get some bounce going, right? Super bouncy. So I can come back down here to physics material. I can change this bounciness down to like a 0.5. Let's see what happens. There you go. Now it's got a little bit of a bounce. Let's do it again. All right. So now one last thing that I want to do is I want to write a little bit of code to make this thing jump. So in the past, we did stuff using the arrows by just kind of setting the pixel values, the x coordinates and the y coordinates, moving things around. But I want to actually, now that we have the physics engine running, we can add a force to this object in the up direction, which will use gravity to sort of accelerate and decelerate and bring it back down. And it looks, a lot of times it looks a lot nicer because it's a lot more natural. It's like a real gravity simulator. So we're going to put a script on this podium. I'm going to right click down here in assets, create C# script, and I'll call it jump controller. Remember, no spaces, none of that kind of stuff, jump controller. I'll click on my coffee table and then drag jump controller over to the right. There we go. Oops. That's not what I want. I'm going to remove it. Remove component. I want to be clicking on my podium. This thing, this is where I want the script to go, because that's the thing I want to have jump. So I'll drag my jump controller over there. Now we'll edit this jump controller. And remember, we're just going to do a couple things. We're going to look up, let's see if I zoom in on this thing. There we go. So inside our update loop, we're going to look for somebody pressing the spacebar. And then when we detect the spacebar is being pressed, then we're going to add a force in the up direction, in the y direction, and we should see it jump. And I'm going to hard code a lot of values in here. Normally, you would either, you would make them at least variables as opposed to just hard coding numbers. But the purpose of this is to show you how to make things jump, not how to code technically correct or whatever. Okay, so if input dot get key down key code dot space. Now notice we did get key down. In the past we did get key. Get key is going to allow us to hold the key down. So if we wanted to hold the right arrow and have it move over, get key down only gets it once, so on the down press. And for a jump, that's what we want. We don't want to, well, I'm not trying to make it so that as you hold the space bar, you jump higher. We just want to jump when you hit the space bar down. So that's why we're using get key down. So we will say get component rigid body 2D. So we are going to try to find the rigid body component. So if we look at our podium, it has a rigid body 2D thing over here. And this is what we're going to add a force to. This thing is our physics. This is what's interacting with gravity. And so we have to say get component rigid body 2D in order to get a handle on this thing so we can add a force to it. So dot add force, new vector 2, 0, something like this. I'm just guessing at values. But basically what we want to say is we want to add a force, no force in the left and right direction, but we want to have it go up. So we're going to add a positive y. So that's what this vector is, this force, add force, a new vector. We can give it an x and a y component if we want it to go right, left, or up or down. So we just want it to go up. So our x component right here is going to be a 0, and then the y is going to be 100. And if we wanted to do a force down, this would be a negative number, something like that. And that's it. That's all the code that we need to write. I'm going to save it. And let's go back and see what happens. So I just picked 100 at the end. I have no idea if that's good or bad. We'll see. If I hit the space bar, there it is. It jumps. It doesn't jump very high, so I can come back. Maybe we'll make this thing like 300. There it goes. Pretty good jump. And if we wanted to have it move to the right as well, remember we could do this too. We could say, I don't know, 10. So now it's going to move 10 units to the right and 300 up. And you can see that it is kind of moving to the right. And if we keep clicking, we can get it to sort of move this way too. Because we're adding a force every time. So the more you click, the more it's going to go. And that's all because we have an x and a y component to the vector that we're adding to the rigid body, the force that we're adding to that rigid body. So that's really it. That's all that we really covered for basics on physics. And you can do a lot more with it. You can use different types of colliders. You can mess around with the materials. And you can mess around with this adding force business and all sorts of fun things you can do. But this is really the basics of it. Once you have a rigid body, you can start doing all sorts of fun things to it. So that's it for physics.